Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets powered by FTN. Happy Wednesday. Chris Meaney here with you on Game Plus Network. Thanks as always for taking the time to hang out here. We're going to run through a bunch of news items that are really filtering through here before we went live. And we got a few games in the NHL. I think 4, right? That's what I wrote down in my little notepad here. Come on. Strong start here. 4 games in the NHL, 11 games in the association. Congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. A big win yesterday. World Series champions, Jorge Soler, the big MVP. Obviously, I'm happy in here. Had that 10-1 future in December. But honestly, I saw some screenshots in our FTN Discord channel, some DMs. The people were on the Braves as well. And, I can't gloat about 10-1. Somebody had them at 50-1 at the end of July. That was roughly right around the time that they lost Ronald Acuna Jr., and they made those additions. I think we need to give Alex Anthopoulos a lot of credit here. I mean, he's a great general manager. I liked some of the stuff that he did with the Blue Jays when he was there. But it's also a really good story. I mean, this guy was just like he was with the Montreal Expos organization, just, filtering through mail. He was like their mail guy. And here he is, like World Series champion, and he has his stamp all over that trophy. I mean, when Ronald Acuna Jr. went down, or Mike Soroka had the second and third setback, and other guys were following in that pitching staff, it was probably easy for him to be like, we'll just kind of ride this out. But he made some key moves, and it wasn't like key moves like, oh, okay, I'll go get Justin Turner or Trey Turner or Max Scherzer. It was like Jock Peterson for pennies, and he had moments on the big stage. He had pinch hit home runs throughout the postseason. Eddie Rosario. Nobody wanted Eddie Rosario. We talked a lot about that on this show before. Nobody wanted this guy. No one. No one even wanted him when he left Minnesota. They didn't want to extend him. They didn't pick up the qualifying offer. No, like he was available for every team out there to grab him. Finally, Cleveland said, okay, we'll grab this guy. And then he was hurt at the time of the trade. He didn't play for the first month. And when he got in there, he was just a platoon guy playing here and there. Obviously, he had huge moments in the postseason. He was the MVP in the NLCS. And then Adam Duvall, another guy, like a platoon guy who had huge moments in the postseason. He had a grand slam in the postseason against the Astros. He was huge as well. And then the Soler addition from Kansas City, who, he really kind of took Ronald Acuna Jr.'s spot atop the order most of the time. They platooned here and there, especially in the postseason with Eddie Rosario when there was a righty on the hill, and then Soler when there was a lefty. But credit to Alex Anthopoulos for getting it done. But that's the screenshot that I saw in my DMs, and it was a 50-1 ticket for the Braves. So yeah, 10-1, whatever. 50-1, hell yeah! Congrats, that's amazing. I'm seeing a lot of the green screens and the screenshots in FTN. So in the FTN Discord, and some FTN subscribers getting that. And congratulations to all the Braves fans out there as well. And for Anthopoulos, who was, again, part of that Expos organization, watching the Braves win all those division titles. I mean, my old man, kind of brainwashed me to be an Expos fan. I didn't follow suit when Montreal left for Washington. He likes the Nats, and I kind of followed Vlad Guerrero Jr. to Anaheim, then to LA, and then, I wish I kind of followed the Nats in a championship a couple years ago. But nonetheless, he watched the Braves just dominate in the NL East, for years. For years, they dominated. They always won the division. They always won. They had the one World Series in 95. A couple times they got there and they lost, or they would lose early. But those, I just remember as a young buck watching, Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz and Chipper and all these guys just balling out, and the old man just frustrated as hell, wondering why the Expos were just shipping off all their players. And then one good season that they had, they went on strike in 94. And he's like, that's it. It's just the Braves world. And then they went back to the Braves being awesome after that. But good on the Braves, on the fans. Pretty cool story, really. It really is, because this team was below 500 as the calendar turned to August. It's almost like the Nats a couple years ago when they won the World Series. They went on that a heck of a run. I mean, they were, I think, double-digit games below 500 in the middle end of May. And then, there's still a lot of baseball left, at that point. But still, a heck of a run by the Atlanta Braves to get it done. And if that was Freddie Freeman's last game as a Brave, he went out on top, hitting that home run in the 7th inning, deep to left. And I don't feel bad at all for any Astros fans or Houston. We'll just leave it there. But baseball's done. You know what? And it's prep time. I'm already seeing, shout out to Vlad Sedler. We're already getting our baseball draft kick going, thinking about plans for the future. Joe Pisapia, I joined him on the Fantasy Pros podcast yesterday, talking a little DFS. He's going to have his fantasy black book out. We're going to, take part in all that, but hopefully MLB can come to an agreement here, and there's actually going to be a season. That's a topic for another day. We'll see. People are live. They're hanging out here. T-Bone Pick'em, sup, Meaney. I haven't caught a live show since the first one. Well, welcome in. We love to have you. And we got Troy Nowak in there as well. Just picked up Matt Ryan and Evan Bouchard in fantasy because I had a ton of injuries. That's Matt Roy, not Matt Ryan. I got football on my brain. We'll talk a little hockey on the show. I got some shot props for you a little bit later on. Tino's going to join us. We're going to go through the fantasy football trends as we do every Wednesday on the show. The most added players dropped. We'll also dive into a little buy low and sell high. We touched on that mostly yesterday, but I want to get Tino's thoughts on a couple players. We will take a look at the most traded players in CBS formats over the last 24 hours. Some big names, of course. It's always big names, but we'll look at the top 10 traded players. And then we'll have an NBA discussion as well because there's 11 games in the association. I think Matt Roy is a pretty good pickup, with Sean Walker and Drew Doughty on IR for the Kings. Matt Roy's on that top power play. I think he picked up a couple points over the weekend, and one of them was an assist. He doesn't shoot the puck a whole lot, and, he's not going to give you a lot of blocks and hits, but, the ice time is going to be there, and just getting that opportunity to play on that top power play is great. And we talked about Evan Bouchard yesterday, Troy, I believe, on this show. It was yesterday or Monday, just defenseman pickups. I think Moritz Seider was on there, Rasmus Anderson, Evan Bouchard, and Josh Morrissey as guys that, you got to go and grab now if you can. But we welcome you in, T-Bone Pickens. Okay, big news here in the NFL today. A couple things. Michael Thomas not going to play. He's done for the season. There's another ankle injury, something different than the other one that he had. I don't know if this guy plays another game with the Saints. He signed that big, massive deal, and it's just been like chaos with him. There's been multiple things. There's been injuries, multiple injuries. He's punching dudes in practice. I don't know, man. He didn't tell the organization. Actually, what it was, I think, in the offseason, according to reports out of The Athletic, was that the Saints wanted him to have off-season surgery. They wanted to bring him in. They wanted to have that off-season surgery, so he was good to go. And he just didn't accept calls. He just ignored the phone calls. And Sean Payton came out and he was ticked off. Why is this guy not answering any of the phone calls? We want him to have off-season surgery, so he's ready to go week 1. And then a couple weeks before the season, he says, "Yeah, guys, I need surgery on my ankle or my foot or whatever it is." And then he misses. Here we are. Right. Fast forward, and we're into week 9, and this guy's not going to play a game. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's just on a new team in general. And then Aaron Rodgers not going to play this week against the Chiefs. That was one of the more appealing games this weekend. It was the only one with a total of 50. It's weird. I was, like I said, breaking down the DFS slate with Joe Pisapia, and it was kind of just a weird slate this week in the NFL. But Aaron Rodgers is not going to play. I don't want to get into if he has a shot or if he doesn't have the shot. Some reports say he doesn't, and he said that he did. Whatever. He's not going to play. That's kind of the bottom line here in fantasy. And he may not play next week either. I believe it's 2 weeks, so that would put him right around Saturday. According to reports, he tested positive for COVID. So we'll see how that plays out, but it is Jordan Love's team for now. In the future, it will be next year, probably as well. Jordan Love's team. I haven't ran my rankings yet. They're live over at ftmfantasy.com. I'll just kind of give you a sneak peek of what I was thinking here. So I had Rodgers at 5. I was liking him against the Chiefs. It's a pretty good spot. Kansas City's given up a lot this season. They're inside the top 10 in passing yards allowed, passing touchdowns. They've given up the most 40-yard passing plays so far this season. So that was just a really good opportunity for Rodgers maybe to stockpile some points. I mentioned the total at 54.5. I'll probably have Jordan Love right at around 19, 20. I'm not going to start this guy in a single quarterback league. I think in a super flex, you need a second quarterback, absolutely. But I'm going to have guys like, if Tyrod Taylor and Taysom Hill play, I'll have both of those guys ahead of Jordan Love. I like the rushing upside that they're going to be able to bring. Carson Wentz, I'm going to have over him. Teddy Bridgewater against Dallas, I'm going to have over him. I may even have Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll probably draw the line at Jones, Definitely won't play Sam Darnold against the Pats. He's probably in for a rough day. Ben Roethlisberger, Baker Mayfield, these guys, like, I probably won't roll out there. Jordan Love. I mean, he's going to have Devontae Adams. It does sound like Adams is going to play this week. Alan Lazard's going to return to the lineup. He's got a great 1-2 punch in the backfield. Both guys can catch balls, and A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. I think really that it's going to be a heavy dose of running, and that's what we saw on Thursday night against Arizona when they were shorthanded. They just ran the football, killed the clock, slowed the pace down. They did a great job of doing that, and they can do that with a 1-2 punch like Dillon and Aaron Jones is probably one of the better ones now with Kareem Hunt sideline. I mean, Zeke, Pollard, I don't know. I think I'd probably lean with AJ. AJ Dillon looks awesome. He looks really good. And Aaron Jones is terrific as well. He can catch a few balls into the backfield. That's kind of where I'm thinking. For the Saints thing here, I mean, check to see if Marcus Callaway was dropped. It's not going to get any better for the Saints. We know what their offense has looked like without Michael Thomas. Now, if Taysom Hill comes in there, they're still playing at a slow pace. I think that they continue to play at a slow pace, the slowest maybe in football the rest of the way, run the rock with Kamara and Ingram. But check if Marcus Callaway is available. Hill's got that deep ball. He's a little bit more accurate than really Jameis. And then I think in deeper leagues, maybe 14, you go Traquan Smith, and then a deeper 15, 16 team leagues. I don't know, Deontay Harris maybe is a guy, but again, keep in mind that this is still a team that wants to run the football and play at a bit of a slower pace, and Taysom Hill is going to probably, they're just going to run quite a bit. But I think Marcus Callaway should definitely be rostered. I got a couple of more news items, but we'll break and we'll bring in Tino, and I'll address some of them too, as one surrounding his old boy, Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. told to just leave practice, excused from practice. What does this mean? I got to hear Tino's thoughts next. Keep her locked. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and producer Tino Rodriguez _ Dude, is that a new Mets hat? That's an old one that you had that you're rocking? I kind of like that. I like the look of that.
Thank you, sir. No, it is an old one. I got it earlier this season, but now that the baseball season is done, we turn the page and we look ahead, and it's time I can wear this again. And it's funny, something hit me last night. As you know, I was Team Braves here. We did not want the Astros to win. First, it was get out the Dodgers. Then it was let's beat the Astros. Yeah. Then the Braves win the World Series, and I was with some people, and they were like, the Braves did it. Aren't you happy? And it's like this emotional clock just hit. I was like, no, I hate the Braves too, but I'm just glad the Astros didn't win. That's just where it is. That's where I was as a baseball fan. But it's Mets season now, first and foremost. So.
Yeah, when you're a big baseball fan, I get it. When I was telling the story about my old man, it's just like so locked into the Expos. I mean, you hate the divisional rivals. That's it. If you're a big sports fan, I feel like a lot of people out there, if you're a Leafs fan, you don't really like the Canadians, you don't like the Bruins. If you're an Eagles fan, you don't like the Boys, you don't like the Giants. Obviously, that division rival, I mean, you don't like those teams in there. The NBA do the same thing, right? LA, Boston, Chicago, like New York. You know, you got all those rivalries out there. For me, I didn't want the Astros either. I mean, you didn't want the Dodgers. I didn't want the Dodgers. As a guy who roots for the Angels, unfortunately, the Astros just win too many ball games in that division, and they've had too much success. So I just go away. So it'll be interesting to see what this offseason is like. I mean, there's a lot of big names out there as well. Let's see what the Mets do. See where Carlos Correa lands, like things like that. Before we breaked, I mentioned the Odell Beckham Jr. news. So this is from Hosina Anderson on Twitter, and Anderson is from CBS Sports HQ, and the tweet here is, quote, "I'm told Browns wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has been told he's excused from practice today per league source. Additionally, it is my understanding that OBJ was ready to attend practice per usual. I don't know what this means. I don't know if they tried to find a landing spot for him last week. I know there's been so much that we can unravel here with Odell Beckham Jr. over the years, but his old man came out yesterday and had some clips and how he's not being fed the ball. Free OBJ, LeBron James tweets. I don't know, man. Is this guy, is he just going to get released? What do you think happens? Is this just a one-day suspension?
This is the NFL version of Ben Simmons right now. That's what I feel like. Like, we just heard this with Ben Simmons at practice where they're like, nope, just leave. It's like, I don't know. And honestly, shout out to his dad, because there's no way he edited that video by himself.
No chance.
I did enjoy it. I actually did enjoy it. It felt like a high school highlight tape on like Huddle where they throw those circles on the players. It was like low lights of highlights, and I don't know how you handle it. Obviously, I'm a Giant fan. We've dealt with Odell's antics before, but he does have a case. He does have a case. I'm not saying Baker's playing favorites, but to say that Odell's underperforming on his own purpose is a stretch. Like, I think he has more to give. And, you know, the Giants are at fault. They sent him to Cleveland to kind of be trapped. And that's what I think he is right now. And it's a matter of time before he's out of there too. And, yeah, I don't know what you do from here on out from a team perspective if you're Cleveland, but he is a head case, and, you know, he tends to be a distraction. So Cleveland's trying to battle back, and they were supposed to, you know, be Super Bowl contenders this year, and right now that's not working out. So I don't think they can afford any more distractions. I think he'd help them, but, you know, they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I still think he has something to offer. It's hard to fault him in Cleveland. I know him and Baker have been on the same page. Injuries have always been an issue, I think, with Odell Beckham Jr., unfortunately. Even his rookie season when he broke out there, he battled something. I believe it was his rookie season or maybe his sophomore season, but injuries have certainly been an issue. I think he could help out a team. I'm sure there was some suitors, some callers out there who were looking, but maybe the asking price was too much. But he is a distraction. He's not 100%. But also Baker doesn't throw him the football. I mean, he had one target last week, and that game came in the final minute of the game. Like, there's really just no looks for him. But so we'll keep an eye on that situation. Clearly, you're not starting this guy. I mean, I told you guys last week I had to start him in one of my dynasty leagues, and I'm shooting for last place here because I got a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. and Allen Robinson, who I thought last year, I mean, I went to the finals with that dynasty team, and those guys were leading the way. Allen Robinson was a beast. He was an automatic 10 points every single week. I don't know if he's gotten 10 points this season. And Odell Beckham Jr., I mean, if anybody offered me anything, I'd take it, and I think you guys should too as well, even in a dynasty format, despite where he lands. There's more news here breaking. Saquon Barkley, according to Ian Rappaport, says that he tested positive for COVID-19 in his initial test, source said, and he is one of several players being rested. He is vaccinated, so he needs 2 negative tests within 24 hours and no symptoms to play if his positive is confirmed. So that's unlike Aaron Rodgers, who Rap Sheet says is not vaccinated, but he was following protocols for unvaccinated players while inside the building, but nonetheless, he is going to be ruled out. And that line has changed pretty quickly. It was KC favored by a point. It opened up again at 6.5, and now I'm seeing 7.5, 8 in some spots. I may just let this ride double digits and then back the Packers because, as you know, the Chiefs don't cover.
So I got in on the early line on the Chiefs already a few times, but now it's getting to the point where if it gets too out of hand, yeah, I mean, to what you just said, you gotta bet the Packers, just like we did with the Giants, who covered. Right. I don't know what it is with the Chiefs and why they don't like covering spreads. This is 2 years in a row now. Very odd. To touch on the Giants, Saquon wasn't going to play this week, in my opinion, either way. So I don't think this moves the needle very much. I know, you know, on some fantasy formats, they had like projections for him and some numbers showing up, but I don't think he was going to play. They're being very tentative with his ankle. They have a bye week coming up, and it seemed everything pointed to he's coming back after the bye. So, you know, not great. He'll get retested, but I don't think his likelihood of playing was there either way. But if there's other people, that could be an effect. You know what I mean? If there's some receivers, maybe Evan Ingram, then we're talking about some different stuff here. But right now, Saquon's the headline, and I don't think that moves very much.
Yeah, he didn't practice today. Kenny did in a limited fashion. Galladay, that is. Michael Gallup is hopeful to return. CMC designated to return from IR, but keep in mind that doesn't mean that he's going to return. Just because they're designated from IR does not mean they're. Michael Gallup last week was designated to return from IR, and he didn't play. And then Kyler and Hopkins, no practice either. You mentioned the fantasy point projections, and when I put up on the board, last couple weeks when we had the top 10 dropped, and it was Chuba Hubbard there, and I tweeted out that Chuba Hubbard was one of the most dropped players, and then people were thinking that CMC was going to play. That's exactly what somebody had said to me, is that, well, I saw the projection for CMC and then I saw it for Chuba Hubbard and it was like 2 points. So I thought I'd get this guy off my roster. You just need to be patient when it comes to that sort of stuff. So let's segue into the most added players here over the last 24 hours. So no surprise. I'd like to get your thoughts on what happened in your leagues. Jeremy Mcnichols, man, I tried to get him in one spot. I gave 30. I upped it from 25 to 30, and he went from 33. I saw in one of our FTN leagues, he went for $100 to Tyler Lochner, who's up at the top. So he just wanted to kind of say, I'm spending all my money here. He probably feels like he's in a good spot. I don't know if he was a Henry owner or not. But in some of my leagues, Mcnichols was the most added, like not just most added, but the most money spent to get him in terms of fab. But there was one of my leagues where a lot of people went in on AP. I think you were on the same page. We'll dive into that in a little bit. But Adrian Peterson, number 2. Boston Scott, 3, if you missed him last week. Devontae Parker, Carlos Hyde, as we don't know the status of James Robinson, but he did avoid a significant injury. But we talked about Hyde on Monday as a guy you want to protect your investment. You want to get these next man up because you want to set yourself up for fantasy playoffs. Have 2 quarterbacks at this time of the year. Have 2 defenses. Look ahead at your schedule. Fill in those buys now. Handcuff your running backs. Taysom Hill, Pat Freiermuth, Derek Gore, and Dan Arnold, followed up by Michael Carter, who's mostly owned in a bunch of leagues, but as RB1 now he's scooped up absolutely everywhere. What do you make of these Tennessee guys?
I'm torn. I'm very torn. And the only league I have Derrick Henry, I've mentioned that I outsourced. I'm high up in the rankings, so I had to trade for someone because I probably wasn't going to get Mcnichols and Adrian Peterson. I think it's a keeper league, whatever it is, deep benches. Someone had Adrian Peterson already. I played with some strange people. Let's just put it that way. So,
well, you know what it is? Sorry to cut you off. You know what it is? In some leagues, you could have grabbed him because he wasn't part of a team. So when there were some reports that he was going to be working out with the Titans, in all the Yahoo leagues, you could have added him. Actually, maybe not Yahoo. In sleeper leagues, you could have added him. Mm-hmm. And in NFL.com leagues, you could have added him. But in Yahoo, he was kind of frozen. So sorry to cut you off, but that's what the case was. In some of my leagues as well, AP was already owned. Surprisingly, I was looking for him last night to do my waivers. And it's like, how is this guy already owned? And I saw he was picked up in the morning when those reports surfaced. Yeah.
I think that backfield is going to be a disaster either way. I think it's going to be obvious. Like, it's going to be a committee. That's for sure. But AP's coming off the streets, 36 years old. I love Adrian Peterson. I rode with him when he was on Washington forever, and he had a resurgence. And then I saw the decline a little bit in play when he went to Detroit. He's going to run hard, right? He's going to be a goal line guy. But to think you're going to get anything of where Derrick Henry, just because Derrick Henry runs hard too, doesn't mean Adrian Peterson's going to be able to replicate that. So I don't know. I don't really love any of these guys. And like I said, I actually feel good that I outsourced. I was able to trade for Leonard Fournette, which is something I'd rather do. I wanted to mention one thing, and I do play in some Superflex leagues. I know you do too, but I think someone who went under the radar here and could end up having some gigantic upside and win some people some leagues is Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill has a very favorable schedule, is a running quarterback, and played tight end last year. Like, you don't even know what this guy is going to do on the Saints. They love using him everywhere. I just wanted to touch on some of the games that he has. So from week 13 to 17, typically when the playoffs are or down the stretch, Dallas, the Jets, Tampa, Miami, Carolina. Now, Tampa's favorable against the pass. Obviously, they're good against the run, but still, he should make his pay dirt. But Dallas and the Jets, neither of those are world beaters. Miami, Carolina, for me, I ended up with my priority, with my first pick, I kind of addressed Taysom Hill and then got whatever runoffs I could get with receivers and running backs because, like we talk about, I'm not getting those top guys. So at that point, you're kind of hoping, right? You're kind of hoping certain things go your way. So I wanted to go with a definite in Taysom Hill just in case maybe the quarterbacks are the next ones up to get hurt because everyone's dropping like flies. I think Taysom Hill, although he's coming off concussion protocol and that's why people didn't pick him up, is like he's the Konami code, right? That's what we talk about. The guy's going to be able to run. He can catch some. Like, he might break fantasy. He did it last year. He was a Cordero Patterson last year. They had to change the rule. don't forget about Taysom Hill. They love him in New Orleans. Don't forget about Taysom.
No, it's a good call. I agree. And I'm just looking at some of his games too, because I'm glad you brought him up. I grabbed him for a couple bucks as a Joe Burrow owner. He's on bye next week, and I don't love the Bengals schedule. So I think, I probably will roll out Burrow against Cleveland this week. But Taysom Hill's a guy that I feel comfortable playing in a single quarterback league. I'll probably have him ranked as a top 12 quarterback. In fact, I'm looking at our rankings right now just to give you an idea of where these guys have, like, say, Jeff Ratcliffe and Matthew Friedman. So it's not just me. You get a little bit of a feel. Friedman has Taysom Hill at 11. Ratcliffe has him at 13. So I have him at 14. I'm actually behind where these guys have him. But to your point, what he did last year, I mean, I got some of the games here in front of me. So against Atlanta, he throws for 233 yards. He has 49 rushing yards, and he has 2 rushing touchdowns. That's 24 fantasy points. The following week against the Broncos, he only had 78 passing yards. He only threw the ball 16 times, which is very possible, again, inside the Saints offense, playing at a slow pace, running the rock. But he was able to have 2 rushing touchdowns and 44 rushing yards, 17 fantasy points for a guy who had 78 passing yards. And then he gets the Falcons again, 23 fantasy points. He had 83 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 232 yards. And then the following week after that, the Eagles, 291 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 18 fantasy points. And I do believe Drew Brees came back in around that time. So he's just like Jalen Hurts, maybe a little bit more accurate than Jalen Hurts, and can give you that rushing floor as well. So I am in total agreement. I think he's still widely available in leagues. Let's just take a look at his ownership right now.
And the thing is, people saw Trevor Siemian perform, and that could also be making the waters a little murky. That's why he might still be out there, because Trevor Siemian played well. He played all right, but Taysom Hill's their guy. He's getting paid to be their guy. So
yeah. Oh, yeah, he's getting paid all right. Yeah, 19% his Yahoo ownership. So, again, if you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, this news just kind of slapped you in the face. Maybe you can check your waiver if Taysom Hill is out there. Derek Carr against the Giants, Daniel Jones against Las Vegas. Those two guys are kind of hover around. I like both of them as streamers. Tua Tagovailoa against Houston. In deeper formats, maybe Justin Fields is a super flex against Pittsburgh. Maybe he gets that rushing upside for you. And then Jimmy Garoppolo against Arizona. So it's possible. There's a lot of quarterback streams out there as well. Tino, we'll take a quick break. I want to dive more quickly into Tennessee, and then we'll take a look at the most drop players. So we'll continue this conversation. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Tino Rodriguez, Chris Meaney here with you. If you have any fantasy football questions, any hockey questions, any questions at all, leave them there in the YouTube section. If you are watching live on our FTN YouTube page, smash that like button, and I'll get back. If you have any questions, you're watching the replay here, FTN Bets, you're not watching live on Game Plus Network, I'll circle back as always, and I'll answer the questions if you do have some. Before we move on from the whole Tennessee thing, I think what you said, I believe, is spot on with Adrian Peterson being the goal line back. He could have a couple games where maybe he goes 12, 15 for 40, and he's not that efficient. We've seen that before. And when he was with the Lions, he had some of those games, but he also had games where he found the end zone, right? He could get 6 touchdowns here in the next 6 or 7 games. That's certainly possible. But I like Jeremy Mcnichols, man. I think he's going to be involved. I think he's I think he's kind of explosive too. Like in the open field, he can catch some balls out of the backfield. He was involved in some red zone packages, not just on third down. I saw it myself, like on second down sometimes. They would have him, lined up wide or, have, a screen pass to him or whatnot. But I'm looking at the rankings, and Ratcliffe and Friedman, not that they're wrong, they're probably right. They have AP ranked ahead of Mcnichols for this week, but they both have him as top 25 running backs. So the matchup this week, they play the Los Angeles Rams. This is a pretty tough spot. I mean, for APs, obviously, he did enough yesterday, I guess, to prove, or to Monday to prove that, he's more than capable, or he's in shape, that they could roll him out maybe this week in a quote unquote full go. But it's a really tough spot against the Rams, and you can pass on the Rams, like in terms of running backs. So just looking at some of the numbers here, I mean, this is a team that when you look at running backs and catches and targets and fantasy points, I think it's mostly because teams are playing from behind. But inside the top 10 in targets, catches, and receiving yards, 7.5 targets backs have per game, 6.1 catches, and 49.9 receiving yards. So I think, if you wanted AP and you didn't get him and you got Mcnichols, I think it's okay. It could be a lot like Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. It could be a lot like Khalil Herbert and Damian Williams. So I personally will have Mcnichols ranked ahead of AP this week, but I do believe that what you said stands true, that there is some touchdown upside, more so when it comes to Adrian Peterson. All right, want to take a look at the most dropped? Let's take a look at the most dropped and figure out, speaking of Kenneth Gainwell, up at the top, Ricky Seals-Jones, Washington on a bye this week, and then it does sound like Logan Thomas will be able to return. So it was a fun ride with Ricky Seals-Jones. It ended sour. It was a sour ending against the Broncos. He didn't do a whole lot. David Johnson was picked up en masse, and then, it was Rex Burkhead out of the backfield and other guys. T.Y. Hilton's already ruled out this week. Dearness Johnson, this one is interesting to me. I don't know why people would cut this guy. Deshaun Watson, get it. You grabbed him. You were hoping that he would come. There's no trade. This guy's not going to play football this year. Randall Cobb, you picked him up for that week. He got you 2 touchdowns. You move on. Daniel Jones has talked about him as a quarterback stream. I like him. I like him as a fantasy quarterback. I think he's, probably going to be a top 15 guy for me against Las Vegas this week. CJ Uzomah, I guess people just, they grabbed him for the 2 touchdowns and they cut their ties with him already. But I think he's in an okay spot against Cleveland. And Samaje Perine. So one, I think Perine should be owned. I think he's another guy, next man up sort of deal, like a Kenyon Drake. If anything happened to Jacobs, Drake would be a top 20 running back. I think if you're a Mixon owner, you want to have Perine. But don't you feel like Dearness Johnson? Don't you think that this? I don't know. Again, this could be an 8-team league, a 10-team league. You're seeing the drops. I'm just giving the most dropped in Yahoo, and he's one of them. He had a touchdown last week, and Kareem Hunt's not close to coming back.
He had their only touchdown last week. I don't understand why we say this every week. He's 10% down. I just looked at it on Yahoo leagues, and I picked him up in one of my 3 Yahoo leagues. I woke up and you're kind of just looking, seeing who got dropped, so on and so forth. And maybe this is a projection thing. He's projected 5.38 this week, but the way they utilized him and the way the Cleveland Browns want to use 2 running backs in this offense, it's meant to be a 2 running back system. Johnson's play has showed nothing for me to be like, okay, you know what I mean? Like Kenneth Gainwell, I get it. Like based on last week, like you're seeing him get passed by Jordan Howard, right? He's not the reception guy. He's not even the goal line guy. Let's not even waste time on Kenneth Gainwell. But Dearness Johnson still has a role in this offense from the last 2 weeks, even with Chubb coming back. So if you see Chubb's workload increasing, sure, but he's still a premier handcuff right now. You saw what he did the second both these guys went out. I mean, him next to Felton, he's clearly head above shoulders on him. And we know that because we faced off against each other 2 weeks ago. Then you see it this week. He scored their only touchdown. Like, even if he's not getting the workload you're expecting, say you're just keeping him on your bench, this is a guy you got to have. He needs to be rostered in more than 53% of leagues or whatever he is right now. Because, one, he's a good football player. I like the way the kid handles it. And he's in an offense that wants to run the ball and knows how to use 2 backs out of the backfield. You see it with Kareem Hunt, who's still on the IR for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I know. We kind of sound like a broken record, but be patient with your rosters. At the same time, I understand, maybe you cut him for Mcnichols or you cut him for an AP and you like that setup a little bit more. I mean, that's certainly possible, but yeah, I mean, have these guys handcuffed. We just saw what Dearness Johnson could do, and Chubb, you never know, right? He could suffer another injury, and then it's Dearness Johnson looking like the best running back in football again, and that could burn you. Some other guys that I think, in deeper formats that I probably should be rostered. I mean, even looking at Mcnichols, his ownership's at 52%, AP 43, Boston Scott at 46. In deeper formats, I do think that Carlos Hyde should be rostered. Maybe Derek Gore, maybe. Who knows if CEH if he doesn't, a setback could happen with him and maybe Derek Gore continues to cut in. Like, that was pretty surprising what he did against the Giants and that he just got those carries, but it could turn into a split. He could overtake Darrell Williams. It's all possible. Ty Johnson, I wanted to throw him out as well. At 10%, his ownership has jumped 5%. So I know a lot of people are going to Michael Carter, and I'm in agreement that it's Michael Carter's backfield. I think maybe 60-40 worst case for Michael Carter, but also for Ty Johnson. Yeah, he's only getting 4 or 5 carries here and there, but he's also, quote unquote, that next man up. But he has 11 grabs on 13 targets in the last 2 weeks. So that is pretty valuable as well in maybe a full point setting. I think that's it. Like Agnew, there's other guys here that I thought I wanted to maybe just throw at people.
Well,
like
I could note with Gore, I got him in our FTN league for free, which is a fab league. I got him this morning for free, and it was like, why not take the flyer on him? For that reason, we don't know what's going to happen with Clyde. And even when Clyde played, it's not like he was a world beater, right? So I think Gore, based on what we saw, and if he is, look, Darrell Williams was fine. He wasn't used on particular drives. It was a typical 2 running back system, and he still ended up with like 17 fantasy points based on his reception totals alone. But if Gore's the goal line guy, Gore's the goal line guy, and there is settled on value in an offense like the Chiefs with that. You mentioned one other person, and it's driving me insane. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Might have been Agnew. Oh, you know who I wanted to mention? Tajay Sharp. That's who I picked up also that people are overlooking. I think Tajay Sharp is a deep league flyer. Again, no Calvin Ridley. We don't know how long. And I thought he was serviceable last week. Again, I'm desperate in some of these leagues, and I'm sure some people are too. So I think for a plug and play and start this week, I have to do it. I think Tajay Sharp isn't a bad go out, start him for this week. A Randall Cobb type play, see how he does for you. A Khalif Raymond. Let's call him Khalif Raymond. But showed enough. The reception's got to go somewhere. I know everyone's looking Kyle Pitts. Obviously, Patterson gets involved there too, but the Falcons like to throw the ball. So I think Tajay Sharp has some deep value, and people are overlooking him as well.
You're speaking to me because I got a list here in front of me of guys that are under-owned in deep leagues, and he's on there. Tajay Sharp, 2% ownership. Yeah, we don't know the status of Calvin Ridley. He had 6 targets and 5 grabs. Russell Gage is a non-factor. I mean, he put up a donut last week. Some other guys here. We saw Parker on the list, but Parker in deeper formats, I can't quit Van Jefferson. I can't. He's actually starting to show up. The Rams released Deshaun Jackson. You just don't know, man. If he could be more involved here down the stretch. Brian Edwards. I mean, what an ugly thing that happened yesterday with Henry Ruggs. And I just saw a notification come to my phone that he was going like roughly 156 miles per hour. It's just such a disgusting thing that happened yesterday. The prayers and thoughts to the victims and the family there. But Brian Edwards, he's probably in for a significant bump here. Hunter Renfrow would grab ahead of him, but his ownership is at 51%. Brian Edwards is at 19%. Elijah Moore, I'm not really sold on. Jamal Agnew, Rashad Bateman is 33%. He needs to be owned in more leagues. Jamison Crowder at 21%. He needs to be owned in more leagues. And then that was the final guy I was going to bring up, and you just hit on it perfectly as we get out of here, is Tajay Sharp. Tajay Sharp, I don't know, man. He's had some decent games before in the past. I can't believe we're back here with Tajay Sharp, but, Calvin Ridley, that's a big hole that they're going to lose. And a lot of the attention, like we saw last week, is going to be to Kyle Pitts. So like you said, you could see Tajay Sharp maybe have some soft
I have to
coverage
start Sharp with Robbie Anderson, and I'm more confident in Tajay Sharp. Let's just put it that way.
Me too. Yeah, that's I agree. I agree.
Where it's
Absolutely
at right now.
Agree.
Yeah.
All right. Another quick break. We'll look at the most traded players here in fantasy. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Watch Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney, Tino, Rodriguez here with you. Troy, I see the Blue Jackets question. We'll get to the NHL in a little bit, but I do believe that the Blue Jackets are in play here as an underdog this evening. Not just no Cale Makar, also no Mikko Rantanen in there as well. So let's take a look at the top 10 traded players in CBS formats. I have an article live over at ftnfantasy.com. Some buy lows, some sell highs, some dynasty buys, guys to add, cut, drop, all that good stuff over there. It's free over at ftnfantasy.com. So this is mostly some top names here. You know, you got Elijah Mitchell up at the top, Keenan Allen. These are guys that I would like to get. Harris, I'm looking to flip, actually. I don't love the schedule moving forward, even though he has been a beast. I think now is the time that you could move him if you wanted to. Antonio Gibson, I'd get whatever I could get for him. I'm extremely worried about him. Seems to sort of deal with Miles Sanders. I'm not into buying him. If you could get something for Miles Sanders, something to help you out right now, go ahead and look at the people up at the top of your league and say, hey, you want to have Miles Sanders? You can afford to take this risk. You can use him as a flex to sell anything that you can when it comes to Sanders. The schedule is actually really nice come playoff time, so you can sell them on that. Stephon Diggs to be looking to buy. The season hasn't been as great last year. Joe Burrow, I get it. The schedule is pretty tough. Allen Robinson to be looking to get rid of. Saquon, I don't really want to take that risk. And Amari Cooper, I'm fine with taking that risk. The one guy that wasn't on this list was Calvin Ridley, and you and I talked off air about it. We wish Calvin Ridley the best. We'd like to see him back on the football field here. Hopefully he gets the help that he's seeking. What he's doing is amazing. The courage that it takes to come out like that and to step away, I'm sure he'd want to play. But also, unfortunately, we have to kind of look at it from a fantasy standpoint. I would be looking to get rid of him too, man. I mean, I know Matthew Friedman came out and said he'd like to acquire him. He's really good at football, but there's a lot of uncertainties, man. And, unfortunately, we just don't know if he's going to come back. And if you can get something, I think you probably move on. Where are you at with that?
So dynasty for sure. I don't even know Well, I mentioned it to you loosely as a joke, but if you drafted Calvin Ridley where you drafted him and you're still in contention to this point, good for you, because the capital you invested in him and what you've kind of gotten out of him, it's just hard to stay afloat, and you mentioned typically, you go receiver with that, or even RB receiver. And we've seen so many top 10 running backs go down already. So, it is a wasteland and it's not easy to recover from that. So, yeah, in dynasty, sure. But there are a few of the guys, I'd rather go for Ridley than Allen Robinson. That's for sure. I don't know what's going on with Allen Robinson, but he terrifies me. Antonio Gibson, zero interest. I like that you mentioned Damian Harris. I pulled off a dynasty trade, was able to package Harris with a couple picks for Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. I don't have to get in the wishy-washy details. But anyways,
nice.
sold Harris on a high and bought Dalvin Cook on a low. And I think, you have to look for things like that. Similar to what we mentioned. You said it yesterday, and I said it earlier. I alluded to it, trading for Fournette on a down week after a bye. This is when you got to jump on players. When you have, and again, I understand my pitch to the guy who traded Fournette was he needs to win this week. He's 2-6. I gave him all the depth, all the players he needs, because I told him if you lose this week, 2-7, you're done. You're done. So I gave him Herbert, I gave him Jerry Jeudy, I gave him Darrell Williams. All of these guys he can start this week. I will sit on the bye week with Fournette. This team is head above shoulders, my best team, and I'll sacrifice it, roll the dice, and risk it because I could afford it, and then find people who need to win now. That's how you pull off these trades. Because if not, these 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s are really tough to get off. But if you find the right situation, it's possible.
I love it. It's beautiful. It's music to my ears. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I've wanted to pull off trades like that all the time, and that's exactly what I do as well. If I'm fortunate enough to be in a good spot, I'm taking a look at the teams that are on bye and which guys that I can go and get. Can I get a Mike Evans or a Godwin? I know that people don't want to give these guys up, but what you said is exactly spot on. I mean, if you have another loss, your season's done and you have to do what you can, and you take the L on some of these trades, but you got to put in healthy bodies. My one thing with Damian Harris is, yes, he's getting a lot of work. I mean, 14, 18, 14, and 23 carries over the last 4 games. He's had a touchdown in each of those 4, and he's got 5 over that span, 6 on the season. He's been pretty good. You got Carolina this week, Cleveland, Atlanta. These are decent matchups. But then you got Buffalo in week 13, which I think is tough. If that doesn't go the way, we've already seen that, him get game scripted if they're down in games. Then you got the bye in week 14. Then you got the best rush defense in football, according to Football Outsiders, in the Colts. And then you have the Bills again, week 16. So that's right away. You got the bye before the playoffs happen. And then the first 2 weeks into the playoffs, you have 2 really tough matchups in Indy and Buffalo. And you play Buffalo before that week 14 bye. So if you can, maybe you flip him. I'm into selling him, so I could see why he's been one of the most traded players in CBS Sports. We'll take a break. I got some NHL picks, and then we're going to round out the show with Tino. He's going to drop by again, and we'll take a look at the NBA board. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. We're going to turn our attention to the NHL. I see people hanging out here in the chat. If you have any questions, please leave them there. We have a brand new show over at ftmbets.com. It is free. Dangle, Bet, Selly with myself and Eric Young. We come at you twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week here in the future. We're talking everything fantasy hockey, some NHL picks, some DFS plays, and some shot props. Yesterday was just like an even money kind of day. I think we lost half a unit. We're still up to 35. I got a couple shot props here for you this evening. There's only a couple games in the NHL for. This is kind of what I'm thinking here tonight. We did get burned by a couple teams yesterday in overtime. We had Nashville beat the Flames in overtime, and then we had Vancouver beat the Rangers. They came back down 2-0, so that kind of burned me. Well, hopefully we can bounce back here with some shot props. I like Patrick Kane here today. He returned to the lineup just the other day, and he put a ton of pucks on net. This guy is not afraid to shoot the puck, and he is in a matchup against Carolina, so it's a bit of a tough spot for Patrick Kane because the Hurricanes are a really good team, but Patrick Kane has at least 6 shots in 2 straight games. He has a game with 7. In fact, he has 4 shots in every game but 1 so far this season. And then you see our usual guy in Svechnikov. He's burned us a couple times, but the 2 times that he did burn us, he was at 2 shots, and he had 5 shot attempts in each of those games. So he bounced back the last time he had 3 shots. He has had at least 3 shots in every game but 2 so far this season. One of those games did come against the Blackhawks, and you see he only played 12 minutes. He took 6 penalties. So if he could stay out of the box here today, I think we'll be fine. But I do like Patrick Kane a little bit more than Andrei Svechnikov. Darnell Nurse we hit last night, and he's been one of our favorites. There's a lot of different ways that you can go, and a lot of people want to go with I almost called him McKinnon, but McKinnon's on the board here tonight too. I think he's okay at 3.5. But Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman is usually plus money. I think he's pretty interesting as well. But I really like Darnell Nurse. I mean, this is a guy who's had at least 3 shots in 5 straight games. I mentioned yesterday he hit at 3. He had 5 the other day. He just gets a lot of ice time, and he's really not afraid to shoot the puck. I mean, he has been among the leaders inside the top 20 in shot attempts so far this season. He's on that first power play unit, which is absolutely lethal. The Preds just played last night. And as you see, you got Matt Duchene on this list as well. My thinking with Matt Duchene is just a little bit more ice time. Philip Forsberg's banged up, but Duchene's been sneaky. He's been at plus money. We've hit him in our FTM bet tracker over the past couple of times. You see just the start, 4, 3, 3, 2, bounces back with 4-3-5. Then he had 2 the other night against the Islanders, and then he had 3 against the Calgary Flames last night. Did get lucky. He needed overtime to get there, but he did ring one off the bar. So the shot attempts are there. The ice time is certainly there when it comes to him as well. And then our usual guy is Dustin Brown. Like, nothing sexy about Dustin Brown. Books just leave him hanging around even money. It's like I've seen sometimes -110, -115. I've seen him plus money in certain books, but this is a guy who just loves to shoot the puck. He's one of those guys that just, like I said before, when I talk about shot props, he's on the power play. He's not the trigger man on the power play. He's in front of the net, so he's quick with his stick and deflections and rebounds, but also instead of dumping in corners, I notice he just dumps it on net. This is a guy who has hit in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of his 9 games, Dustin Brown. Troy, I see the question, how do you feel about the Blue Jackets? Oh, in the next 5 years, how do I feel about the Blue Jackets? Dude, there's not enough time on this show to get into that. I'm kidding, Troy. You're a regular here, and we love you. They're on the rebuild. I don't know. They've lost a lot of guys. They've lost probably a good 12 guys over the past 2 years, from Panarin to Bobrovsky to Pierre-Luc Dubois. I wonder the future of Patrick Laine. There's been numerous guys that have left the organization. I like where they are in goal. I think Elvis Merzlikins is a pretty solid goaltender. But Seth Jones is another guy. I don't know. I don't really love the future, man. I don't like the direction. They're going to have to build through the draft. I don't know if they're going to be able to land a lot of people through free agency. I think they'll have to build through the draft. But like you asked earlier, I do think that they're in play to win today, potentially. We do got to get out of here. I want to talk some NBA, but I do think that they're a good dog to go against Colorado with no Makar, no Rantanen. But I think Carolina to win on the puck line at +180 against the Blackhawks, that'd be maybe my favorite bet on the board. And I do like the Blues over the Kings as well. All right, we're going to continue. A little NBA talk next on Mean Streets. Don't go anywhere. All right, Mean Streets here. One final time on Game Plus Network. Got Tino back in. Could have had you hang around and maybe saved NHL for the end. Troy, I'll get in deeper into that Blue Jackets comment on the show tomorrow, Dangle Betselli, with the Eric Young. All right, NBA board, 11 games. I know it's early. It's tough really to get into props. I like James Harden plus money to have 2.5 threes. I think that's a decent one. I mean, I always look at just shooters at plus money for 2.5 threes. Sometimes you can get Steph Curry at like 4.5, and I just take it because you just never know. We only got about 2 minutes here. What do you think so far on the board? Like, what do you like here tonight?
So you inspired me to look at some James Harden props. Whoa, nice little echo. Shout out to the people who need to know that we are doing this live, so there will be some technical issues. So I was looking at some James Harden props, and for him to get a double-double, he's coming off a triple-double. Last year, he actually got a triple-double against the Pistons and followed it with 2 triple-doubles. That is at 8-1. I'm not telling you to do that. Even money for him to get a double-double on DraftKings, I don't think that's a bad bet either, including his over in terms of threes. There's a few teams here that I'm digging. I really like the Chicago Bulls tonight. I do. I like the Chicago Bulls. I'm not touching the Knicks. I can't figure out the Knicks to save my life. I don't like them. I like them. Either way, I'm wrong. We're taking the Brooklyn Nets at home -5. Let me just pull up this entire slate here. So, okay, we're looking.
The Bulls are plus money, which is nice.
Yes, which I love. I understand the Sixers are good at home. The Bulls are a better team. They're getting 2 points. I would bet the money line. The Cleveland Cavaliers getting 5 points at home against a struggling, winless on the road Trailblazers team. I think that's just too many points. I think the Blazers could make this interesting. Dame Dollar could hit a game-winning 3, but the 5 covers that. I like Memphis. They already beat Denver at home. They're having a home and home. That feels pretty good. Washington as well. And then I'm taking the over. I liked the Warriors. I'm not going to pick a side here because the Hornets are kind of scrappy, especially on the road, but over 226.5. I like the Warriors Hornets to get over that. Both teams love to shoot threes. I haven't looked at Steph's over prop in terms of threes either, but him and LaMelo, I feel like we might have a show here on ESPN later tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of basketball coverage over at FTN, some DFS coverage as well, and you can get some props in there. The guys talk about it quite a bit. Let's get it out on the way out here. We got Steph Curry. Let's see what the threes are. Oh man, there's so many props with Curry. Like 5.5 is not even plus money, so it's pretty tough when it comes to Steph. But it is very aggressive. But I do think he's going to continue to just light the world on fire in the NBA. We talked about his MVP prop as well. I'm with you on the Bulls, man. Plus money, I get it. The 76ers are pretty good. It does look like Joel Embiid is going to be able to play here. So they will be at full health without Ben Simmons, but I still think that the Bulls plus money take a shot on them. And then the Spurs. I think the Spurs with the Mavs on a back-to-back, I think that they're okay as well. You got to pick on the Mavs, right? I think
the Mavs are going to get you tonight. They got me last night, and now betting against them will get you tonight. That's NBA basketball. That's betting NBA basketball. The night you just decide to fade a team, doesn't work out, you go against them the next day, or you go with them, and it's vice versa. It's gambling.
Yeah,
we are betting here. We are betting here.
We are. We appreciate you as always hanging out with us today, and we will be back tomorrow. We'll preview the Thursday night football game and a whole lot more. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. Have a good one. Cheers.